Well, hello and welcome, Power Partners, to our informational playground. This is Starstyle. Be the star you are. We're coming to the airwaves under the auspices of Be the Star You Are charity. I'm your host, Cynthia Brian, and we're on the Voice America Media Empowerment Channel. We strive to seed, stimulate, and support space for positive, meaningful conversations. Have a great show for you today. I think you're really going to enjoy it. Coming right up in segment one is Larry Freeborg. He is the author of the new book, Always at Choice. We'll have this inspirational conversation with wisdom for finding our way forward in life, love, relationships, and business. Larry's going to help us recognize our choice points and will show us how to rediscover hope, even in the face of unimaginable loss. In segment two, have you ever heard of the Doomsday Clock? I hadn't, and it was kind of interesting. It is now set at 85 seconds to midnight, 4 seconds closer than it was in 2025. What does that mean for the apocalypse? What can be done? We're going to investigate that. Well, the miracle moment for today, brought to you by Be the Star You Are charity. You can visit Be the Star You Are at bethestarur.org, is by Henry David Thoreau. What you get by achieving your goals is not nearly as important as who you become by achieving your goals. And I think that's a great segue into our segment one with our interview with our guest, Larry Freeborg, who is the author of Always at Choice. He's the founder of Stepping Through the Gate, which is a wise elder coaching service. And he has helped so many individuals move from significant losses to a place of healing and renewal. And I'm very excited to speak with him. Hello, Larry, and welcome to Star Style. Be the star you are.
Thank you, Cynthia. It's exciting to be here.
Well, I am very happy to talk to you, and I enjoyed your book, Always at Choice. And when I first read about it, I thought, now wait a minute, isn't it always a choice? How did at choice come? And of course, you describe it right in the beginning of the book. But why don't we start with why you decided to write the book? I mean, I know the huge losses that you've had in your life, and now that you were in your most younger years, you wanted to help others. But give us a little prelude to your reasoning for writing the book and why you call it Always at Choice.
Well, thank you. Always at Choice is a result of a lesson, a big lesson that I had in the psych ward trying to cope with the loss of my first wife. And I didn't realize how different it was to think of always at choice as compared to always a choice, or need to, or have to, or want to. And just that little shift in thinking about what do I choose to do with my children after my wife died, which was the question that the therapist asked me, what do you choose to do? How do you want to take care of your kids? How do you choose to take care of your kids? And I was into the old belief system as that I had to take care of my kids. I needed to take care of my kids. I had all sorts of rules about how I would take care of my kids. But I was always at choice. In the moment, I was at choice.
Well, and we should mention before you go forward in this that your wife died very young, leaving you with 4 children, and not a few days later, you lost your job of 18 years. So you had no money, you had no wife, you had 4 kids, and you really didn't feel at the moment that you had choice until, right?
That is absolutely true. I was overwhelmed with all the things that I had to do. I couldn't live life the way that I was living it, trying to raise my 4 kids. And so I chose to ask for help.
Which
And
is
in
very
choosing to
smart.
ask for help, that's where I learned the lesson always at choice. What was interesting is that I was working for a Fortune 500 business, and I was already using outside consultants to help me with my business life. So when I was asked if I would go to a psych ward and get some help, I didn't see any stigma in why that was bad. I said, well, if I could have help in my business life, why can't I have help in my personal life? And so it wasn't any stigma that I had that I was doing something that was really terrible or bad, but I sure was glad I was getting help.
Well, and I think that's a huge message in your book is about the importance of getting help. Asking for help when you need it is a sign of strength, not a sign of weakness. And you made that very clear when you drew this picture that's on the cover of your book that is of the ship on the seas. And I know when I first saw it, I thought, why is this picture of a ship on the cover of the book? And then again, you explained it in the book. So go ahead and tell about why you drew this picture and why it is the feature of the cover of your book, always at choice.
This was another big lesson from the psych ward. One of the exercises they have you do is an art project. And this particular project is a picture, or in this case, the ship is a picture of a copper rubbing that I did in the psych ward. And my image of the ship was me coming out of a dark space and going into the light side. And the idea of choosing a big galleon was to have a lot of sailors on the ship helping me sail that particular ship. So it became an image for me to look at and to vision my life going forward. I mean, when you talk about the star style and be the star that you are, I guess I wasn't thinking that I was a star, but I was thinking that I certainly had a lot of capacity for things to give, and it was just for me to get life straightened out, choose what I wanted to do, and move forward.
Well, and the exciting thing is you definitely moved forward with after being in the psych ward and getting the help you needed. You continued to really study, to really get a lot of take a lot of courses, get a lot of different coaching. You did a lot of multiple disciplines, which you have been able to pass forward in your own key coaching practice and use these modalities that have been so important. Do you want to discuss some of the things that really made a difference for you and things that you actually teach, with the assessment tools and just how to capitalize, as one of your chapters says, how to capitalize on natural gifts and talents. I always talk about gifts, the gifts that we have, and that each of us are unique. That's what be the star you are means. So, if you could share what your interpretation of the gifts are, that would be fantastic.
I'd be happy to. Interestingly enough, Cynthia, the opportunity to creatively capitalize on my natural gifts and talents wherever they took me was something that fortunately I got exposed to when I was 27 and a member of Toastmasters Club. And there was a guy that had been promoted to a plant manager, and I went up and congratulated him on his promotion. And I said, what do you attribute your success to? And his statement to me was, well, Larry, I'm not a very smart guy. What I mean by that is I didn't finish high school, but I eventually did when I was in the Navy. And then I found I took a couple of courses in college after that, but it didn't really work very well for me. He said, I'm not trying to be braggadocious, but what it seems to be that I think 3 to 4 times faster than the people that are next to me in planning production. And so what I think is the secret to success is finding what you're gifted in, be creative in your gifted areas. The second and the most important, or third and the most important thing, is to implement your creations, because there's a lot of people that have lot of great ideas, but they don't take action. And I thought about that for a long time, processing, well, what was I really good at? What did I enjoy? What was fun? And what could I create an income on? And that's what I discovered, is that I had the ability to do marketing. I had the ability to do creative problem solving and strategic planning and business development. And so that's what I capitalized on for a lot of years before I went into coaching.
Well, you know, Larry, the story, I'm so glad you chose to tell that. That is my favorite story from your book because I, like you, believe this. I think that we need to go towards our natural talents, our natural gifts, and do what we're good at. Because if we're good at something, we're going to enjoy doing it more. And then that's going to have a positive impact on the people around us as well as ourselves. So to me, that was just such an important chapter. And I just want to say I am so sorry for the loss of your second wife, Dodie, and you dedicated your the book to her as well. But what was so wonderful is that you were able to share another 30 wonderful years with her. So there was that rainbow at the end of that dark tunnel.
There was, and she was, I called her the wind beneath my wings.
Yes.
She
Yes.
allowed me to soar. And there was another case where finding another relationship was really a challenge. It took me about 10 to 15 years before I found Dodie and could go into another relationship that could really work. But we ended up to be such a great team. It
But
was
doesn't
just,
that give people hope? I mean, that's what took away from this is you have been through so much grief, and that's what your subtitle of your book is, Strategies for Moving On After the Death of a Spouse or Life Trauma. And what it showed me in reading your book, Always at Choice, was the fact that if we keep working towards our gifts, our talents, and what we really believe in, and keep trying to improve ourselves, we are going to reach that transition, that point where some good things will happen. And you were able to reinvent yourself, basically.
yes, just like I just picked up a little bit when I reviewed your website that I get that you believe in learning, lifetime
Lifetime
learning.
learning. We have to be lifetime learners. And that's
It,
what you are. It doesn't matter how old you are or where you are, you have to keep learning every single day new things. And my goodness, the number of different courses that you have mastered and been able to interpret and help others with, it's just so impressive.
Thank you. It, and my primary way of learning is through experiences. It's
Hmm.
not the intellectual knowledge that I gain, but let's say the experience through my body that I experienced, whether that idea worked or not. And if I tried lots of ideas, some of them didn't work. And so I left them behind and kept moving until I found the belief systems, the ideas that did work. And those are the ones that I chose to write about in my book.
And this is a book probably a long time coming. Had you been thinking about doing it for a while, or were you always making notes?
Cynthia, I thought about writing the book for 20 years,
Mm.
but the 20 years was primarily about writing a business book, about strategic planning and business development. But the more that I processed and started to write, it came to me that the basis for my life was that I was always at choice, both in
Hmm.
my business and in my personal life, and in life as a parent, a father, a life as a mate. And I just That seems to be the foundational piece that I lived my life by, as being always a choice. And that stimulated the next big lesson, which was pretty surprising to me, is that I was accountable and responsible for what I create. In other words, I wasn't accountable for Shirley's leukemia, but I was accountable for how I dealt with it. I'm
Well,
not
it's the action versus reaction. For every action, there is a reaction, and you have to be accountable and responsible.
right.
That's the way it is. And you talk about that, and you talk about your values and the importance of grounding your values and living by your values.
Well, one of the thank you. One of the big things, or one of the big lessons that I learned from one of my courses was to be the observer of the observer I am.
Mhm.
In other words, sometimes the way I'm looking at the problem is the problem. That if I can shift the way I look at the problem, I might solve it a lot easier than how I'm fixed on what the solution should be. So that became another big one along the way.
And it's all reframing, basically. Well, so many of the things that you live by and teach, you talk about managing your emotional mood because that your moods really can influence your actions. And of
Yes.
course, the most, it's very important to be an effective communicator, right? And
Mhm.
one thing that when I was reading was the importance of keeping your promises. I call it walking with integrity. But
That's a good way to speak about it.
yeah, I mean, if you can't, my dad always said his handshake, was his contract. And if you can't keep your promises or walk your talk, then you're not being truthful and you can't be trusted. And trust is a very important part of living and creating positive relationships. And again, the book Always at Choice Strategies for Moving On After the Death of a Spouse or Life Trauma by our guest, Larry Freeborg, helps you learn what you can do with your messaging and really how to change, I think. And as you said earlier, just keep on learning. It's never too late to learn. I want to just learn until the day I take my last breath. As we're coming to the end of this interview, Larry, though, I know there's so much more that we could be talking about. What would you like to leave with our audience of what do you think is the most important message or the wisdom, your pearl of wisdom for both personal and professional fulfillment that you would like to share with us?
Uh, Thanks for asking. For me, the most important thing is to choose how you want to live your life. And in my particular case, I chose to be of service, to help people that had experienced the same thing. And it's only a choice that works for me. But the other part is to creatively capitalize on your natural gifts and talents wherever they take you, because it's so much easier to be working in what you're having fun doing than what you have to do. And
Right.
so those would be the two things that I would leave with people today.
And I think those are so important because again, when you're going towards your gifts and your talents, usually you will be having fun and that will emanate out to the world. You'll be good at it and you will be able to make a difference and always be at choice. Let me give out Larry's website. It's always at choice.net. And then also what he's working with is steppingthroughthegate.com. You can also find Larry on LinkedIn. His name, Larry Freeborg, is spelled Freeborg. Larry, thank you for writing a very impactful book that can really make a difference in everyone's life because we're all going to go through grief. It knows no boundaries. We're all going to have a trauma at some time or another, and we're all going to have losses. So, knowing some strategies and knowing that we are at choice always can make a difference. Thank you, Larry, so much for being on Star Style. Be the star you are.
Thank you. It's been very enjoyable.
Oh, it's been fun. Well, thank you all for listening to Star Style Be the Star You Are. I'll be back in a bit with our second segment, but first we'll have a business bite about positive attitude, something else I'm very dedicated to. You are listening to Star Style Be the Star You Are on the Voice America Media Empowerment Channel. I am Cynthia Brian, and I'm so glad you are with us. Stay with me. Winston Churchill said, "The optimist sees opportunities in every danger, while the pessimist sees danger in every opportunity." Decide to look at life from another perspective, a positive perspective. You cannot choose what happens to you or what happens around you, but you can choose what happens in you. You can choose your attitude. Choose to have a positive attitude. Attitude is 10% what happens to you, but 90% about how you respond. Remember, attitude determines altitude. Today, share that gift of a positive attitude. You are the star of your own performance. Turn your passions into profits. I'm Cynthia Brian with another business bite from Star Style. For more information, visit cynthiabrian.com. That's Brian with an I.com. Well, we're back, and you are listening to Star Style Be the Star You Are with me, Cynthia Brian, your host, coming to you on Voice America Media. We are on the Empowerment Channel. I hope that you enjoyed that interview with Larry, with his really interesting and a very helpful book, Always at Choice: Strategies for Moving On After the Death of a Spouse or Life Trauma. Now, talking about trauma, I have just found out about the Doomsday Clock. It is now 85 seconds to midnight. It's the closest it's ever been. But what is it that the scientists say this means for humanity and how time is determined? This was really interesting to me. The time is 4 seconds closer to midnight than it was in 2025. And what that means is humanity is closer to destroying itself. And that's according to atomic scientists who revealed that this doomsday clock was set at 85 seconds to midnight. It's the Bulletin of the Atomic Scientists. This is a science oriented advocacy group, and metaphorically, it rates how close humankind is to annihilating itself with human-made advancements. Midnight represents the point at which humans will have made Earth unlivable. If that's not scary, I don't know what is. Well, this is what the president and CEO of the Bulletin of the Atomic Scientists says. It's Alexandra Bell. It is the determination of the Bulletin Science and Security Board that humanity has not made sufficient progress on the existential risks that endanger us all. Therefore, we have to move the clock forward. The risk we face from nuclear weapons, climate change, and disruptive technologies are all growing. Every second counts, and we are running out of time. It's a hard truth, but this is our reality. And what the board cites is the failure of leadership worldwide as one of the main reasons the clock ticked forward by 4 seconds towards midnight. I mean, a year ago, they warned that the world was perilously close to global disaster and that any delay in reversing course would increase the probability of catastrophe. But rather than heeding the warning, Russia, China, and the United States, as well as some other major countries, have instead become increasingly aggressive, adversarial, and nationalistic. And so the group of scientists pointed to the risks of nuclear war, climate change, the misuse of biotechnology, and the potential of AI threat. I'll give you a little bit closer look at the clock, and then, of course, you can look it up and choose for yourself. But this is how it was created. It was just a symbolic way to show the public how close the Bulletin of Atomic Scientists believe the world is to human apocalypse. Midnight represents Earth's total annihilation. And as the clock moves closer to midnight, it suggests that humanity is nearing self destruction. It's possible for the clock to move away, and if it does that, it indicates that humanity has taken steps in the past year to reduce the risk of the end of the world. It is a metaphor, but it's a reminder of the perils that we have to address. So, what steps can be taken to set the clock further from midnight? And this is what the scientists say. We have to cool the nuclear arms race. The United States and Russia could resume dialogue about limiting their nuclear arsenals. All nuclear armed states could avoid destabilizing investments in missile defense and observe existing moratoriums on explosive nuclear testing. We could address biosecurity threats, and through both multilateral agreements and national regulations, the international community could take feasible steps to prevent the creation of what's called mirror life and cooperate on meaningful measures to reduce that prospect that AI will be used for biological threats. We could push for more renewable energy. The United States has not done that. Instead, we have more incentives for fossil fuels and we need to reduce them. And then regulating AI, again, the US, Russia, and China could engage in bilateral and multilateral dialogue on meaningful guidelines that would regard the incorporation of artificial intelligence in their military, particularly in nuclear command and control systems. So this is something that we definitely want to engage in. I mean, it is definitely a very scary time. So I'll let you go ahead and do more investigating about the nuclear threats as well as this doomsday clock setting. I should tell you that in January 2023, the doomsday clock was set at 90 seconds to midnight. That was the closest it had ever been, in large part because of the nuclear threat posed by Russia's war on Ukraine, which we've now entered the fifth year. But then again, this year it's gone closer because of the Gaza war. And in 2025, it was at 89 seconds to midnight. But now we are the closest that it has ever been. It has been reset more than 20 times since first appearing in 1947. So it's really quite an interesting metaphor that I'm going to keep following. And before we close, I just want to remind everyone that the Actors Awards will be happening this Sunday on Netflix. I have voted for all the actors and the best movies. I've been watching everything, and it's going to be quite exciting. So I'll hope you will check in at Netflix and you can watch it live, or I imagine it'll also be later as well. Well, this is our show for today. I thank you so much for joining me on Star Style Be the Star You Are every week. I love bringing you the expert advice and the authors to help you change your life and make your dreams come true. For more information about Star Style Productions or to purchase any of my 12 books, visit cynthiabrian.com, and that's Brian with an I. To get involved with Be the Star You Are charity or to make a donation, visit bethestaryouare.org. Be the Star You Are is 100% volunteer run. We have no paid staff, including myself, and we do everything for the charity because we want to make a difference in the world. It's our passion. My aim is always to encourage, inspire, inform, amuse, and motivate. See beyond your physical being and know you are already the star you dreamed of becoming. Cherish the past, dream of the future, and celebrate every moment of your life. And if you're going to read a book this week, which I hope you will, pick up Always at Choice Strategies for Moving On After the Death of a Spouse or Life Trauma by Larry Freeborg. Thank you again for playing here in my barnyard. And until next week, when we celebrate again on Starstyle, Be the Star You Are, remember that love always wins, kindness always prevails, and smiles will keep us happy. I am Cynthia Brian for Starstyle, thanking you and encouraging you to be kind, be inclusive, tell the truth, live with integrity, embrace cultures, love unconditionally, encourage others, be generous, read, lead, succeed, communicate, collaborate, innovate, and most of all, be your unapologetically authentic self because everyone counts. Go out into the world and be the star you are. Thank you for joining me, and we'll be together next week. Ciao for now.